Okay, hi, it's David Lawrence here. We're live on LinkedIn Live, and I wanted to bring a 5 o'clock broadcast. We're going to try and do this, well, I'm doing it every week. I'm going to try and do it a bit more often than that if it starts to go well, and we had lots of commentary on it. And thanks for the messages last week. We had a really good LinkedIn Live last week, and I'm just bringing up my feed so I can make sure I've got it on my phone. We brought up some really good stuff last week, some really good conversations, talking to my network, talking to the candidate community. So I thank everyone for that who participated in it last week. And I think it's great to be able to talk to each other and talk to the community on LinkedIn, because people are sharing great ideas. They've got suggestions on how you can help each other. And I know some of the things that we were covering last week, we were talking about getting your CV up to scratch, things that you can look out for to basically go out better on the job hunt. That was really good. And hopefully there were some good comments on how to do that and what people were doing. We also had, we were just talking a little bit about how to network and how to network better, not only online, but also offline. And I think this is a good subject that we can go into a lot more detail over the coming months. And I'm sure whether you're searching for a job right now, if you're thinking about your next change, it might be how you go about networking to look for the next role, rather than just a traditional way. You might be just sending out your CV, not doing anything once you've sent out the CV in terms of follow-up. Be a bit more strategic about how you're approaching those contacts within those organizations, whether you're staying in a contract role or a permanent position. And of course, a big subject that's on a hot topic in the contractor world in the UK at the moment, of course, is IR35. It's really ramping up now. We're on the 20th of January. It's really biting into organizations now. Some have obviously come with blanket bans within the organization. Other companies are still deciding. Obviously, you've got large corporates that have to make some very important decisions, and that's affecting workers. And obviously, there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of challenge for companies who are not addressing it quickly. But there's also a lot of opportunity. And I think you've got to be proactive and you've got to be positive and see the opportunity. For some, it might be an enforced break. For others, they might enjoy taking some time out, watching the market and seeing what happens. For others, of course, we have to pay our bills, or people have to pay their bills. So, of course, they have to get on. So anyway, I'm sure we'll be going much further into IR35 and talking into that. I'm actually trying to line up a special guest where we can talk about that in a bit more detail over a couple of weeks. But it won't be that long, and things will die down into a sort of a normal status. So you could look at IR35 a bit like Brexit, I think. We're going to talk more about working in Europe. That's certainly an opportunity for people. I think there's some amazing talent that obviously is in the UK, and of course that have come from Europe and come into the UK. But if you're thinking about working in Europe, we might have a special guest on talking a little bit about that. But you might just have some questions that you want to discuss. There's a huge community out there that has already worked in Europe. If we're talking about Europe, there might be other things. If you've got questions, you can just add them in the comments section here on LinkedIn. So just drop in your questions and the community can try and answer it. And I know we had some good things happening last week where we had lots of great answers to the community. So thanks for all those people that participated in that. It could be that you're planning on working in Europe, or you've already worked in Europe before. So you might need to think about a number of things. You've got to think about logistics. So where you're going to be living, is it going to be close to the site that you're going to be working in? How are you going to get there? You've even got people that are commuting across, to Paris or Amsterdam on a weekly basis. But you're also going to have to think about your tax liabilities as well. And I talk about that whether you're a contractor, you're a permanent candidate looking for a move. But, tax jurisdictions are very rigorous these days. And understandably, you want to make sure you take proper advice and that you're compliant in the location that you're planning to work. I think it's really important that, you don't find yourself or the client tapping on the door. And I know there's stories I've passed, and I know some of my network will remember this, where, revenue have entered sites. They've come on site, tax inspectors have come to site and they've checked people out. So, don't think you're not, you're in a gray area where you can't be found unless you're working from home, and that you might get away with it for a little while. So anyway, we'll be talking a little bit about that and working overseas, but also I think a lot of the time where perhaps English is your first language, and maybe you don't speak the local language, I think often or not that can be a challenge for people to integrate, even if they're working for a 6 to 12 month contract. In some places it might be more difficult, not everywhere these days, but it can be more difficult and can lead to a little bit of isolation. So that's an interesting point. We'll be talking more about that further. I think we'll be having some guests on that are talking a little bit about that as well. I wanted to touch on a few things today. There's two really interesting topics I wanted to touch on. One, we're gonna talk about sleep, and the reason I bring up sleep is because every time I speak to my network, or we're talking to people, I know that a lot of people now have got kids. A lot of people have got kids, of course, but a lot of people have got challenges in sleeping. Not only those without kids, those who don't have the time to manage their their mental health. It's very intense. Their work is intense. We're having a lot of things. We're always on with our devices, and I'd love to hear what people are doing to help themselves sleep. Or to get into that mindset, so you can wake up, you feel like you've had a good sleep. I know it's difficult even for myself with young kids and young families, children, in the bed with me, feet all over your face. You can put them back in their bed, that they come back, and then you're too tired, you can't be bothered to do it anymore, so you just carry on as normal. But I remember talking to one of our network the other day, and they were saying, one of the things, it sounds so simple, but just putting your phone in another room when you go to sleep. Now, that sounds like good advice, but we're probably, many of us, not following that sound advice, and it might be that you need to go back to having an old-fashioned alarm clock in your room. You might even have an Alexa, which also has its problems, because with the screen going on, or someone saying Alexa, all of a sudden the screen can light up. So maybe it's better just to remove those digital devices completely, and take them out of your room. So that's also a thing that you might want to think about doing to help you sleep. Now, helping you sleep and getting that working together. Again, some of the tips that I've learned just by talking to people, and the things that I try to follow, is even just having a herbal tea before bed, taking that time to switch off the phone, to disconnect from the outside world, just for that time, whether it's half an hour, 20 minutes, if you can't afford that time, and really getting. One thing that works for me is getting everything that you've got in your mind and writing it down. So having a pen or a pad next to your bed, and again, it gets it away from you saying, well, you want to put it digitally in your phone, you want to put it on your Trello doc or your notebook or whatever, or notes on your phone, or sticky notes. But get away from that and maybe put it on a piece of paper, old-fashioned way, and it might even just give you some nice therapy before you go to bed in terms of that relaxation. Look, if you've got some clever things that you do to help you sleep, I'd love to hear from you. I think we're just waiting for a guest to come on over the next couple of weeks who will be talking, who's an expert on this stuff, and we'll be talking and sharing their ideas on helping that as well. And yeah, I'd love to know what time people are getting to sleep these days. Are you able to stay up till midnight? Are you able to stay up late? And what time are you going to sleep? Rav, thank you for that bit of Paul McKenna there for yours. So you said there, recommend sleep listening to Paul McKenna. That sounds fantastic. But my only worry is he's going to hypnotize me in my sleep. So hopefully he doesn't say anything suggestive to me in my sleep. But I think that's a good idea, and we need to look at that. I think I'm sure there's actually loads of good podcasts out there on getting to sleep. And obviously you've got meditation apps like Calm. But clearly, again, it goes back to you're using your phone, you're using something digital. So I think it's trying to escape all that and trying to get away from it. But again, different things work for different people. So I'd love to hear what people are using to help them sleep, and equally to get through the night. Again, if you've got young children, it can be a challenging time when you're going through that. And it might be you're lucky enough to have a supportive partner where you can escape a little bit to the spare room, and it might that might be needed as well. But of course it's helpful to do that for each other as well, and you need that time so you get a full night's sleep. I know sleep's a massive thing on this, so I'd love to do that. I'd love to hear what people are doing to help themselves sleep. So please come back to me, tips and tricks, anything I can do that. I'd love to know more about it. Now, come back after sleep. I wanted to talk about that, but I just wanted to touch on something that I've talked about in the past, and a lot of candidates have, which is what I call the ATS black hole. Now, obviously, this is LinkedIn. Lots of people use LinkedIn to find jobs. They use it to network, to find things. I'd love to hear what people's experiences are. Now, the ATS, for those who don't know what it is an application tracking system. Many companies use it to track their workers or their candidates who are applying for jobs. So you can use it both for permanent hires, and you can use it for contractors. It might be said as contingent workers in a lot of organizations, and they can use these systems that could be one of the smaller, more agile, more nimble systems like Greenhouse or Workable or Jibe or a number of other systems out there. Google Hire, which is stopping using now. I think if you're using Google Hire, you can use it for free for another 18 months or so. But anyway, there's lots of systems out there that track candidate engagement, and you might be applying for a role, particularly if you're applying for a permanent role. You might be going through one of the organizations that are using things like Fieldglass, for example. They might be using Workday. A lot of larger organizations now are going for Workday, for example. It's very good. It's more agile. But equally, you can send your CV. If you go onto a large corporate website, you send your CV in, and you might not get any feedback. You might not hear from anything. Now, some of the more better engaged organizations are putting in, really thinking carefully about that candidate journey, that candidate experience. So when you apply for that role, you get acknowledgement, first of all. And I think that's what everyone wants, is that acknowledgement where they can. Now, that can be really difficult where you're having volume candidates coming in. And it's not difficult to set up an email auto notification, but equally, I think candidates want more than that now. So not only do they want notification, they want to know when they're going to hear back. And again, if there's some kind of expectation of when people are going to hear back, that's good too. They can also put in something around some content, video content that's useful for candidates. I don't see many organizations doing that, but it could be that they're playing something not just about the company, not just about the environment they're going to, but something that could give value back to the candidate. But a lot of the time, these candidates might have already applied for the role and they're already on the system, and they've applied for that organization in the past, and then nothing's happened. There's no follow-up. Nobody gets in touch with them, and the candidate doesn't enjoy the experience, and doesn't apply to that role again. So you've also got a lot of candidates out there, I suspect, that are silently not applying to those organizations. Now, that means that they've perhaps applied in the past, but now they wouldn't apply because of the poor experience they've had. So that also already tells you there's a percentage of people that are being lost to organizations because of the way they've treated those candidates in the past and not put in good processes. So it'll be really interesting. The ATS black hole, as I call it, a lot of companies need to look at that carefully. But the biggest challenge that most of them have got is time and resource, and it's managing that in an effective way. But they need to look at it really carefully and look at where they're losing their candidates that are applying for the role, and how to give them an optimum experience. And that's why more nimble, more agile companies, and also the agencies that are supporting those companies, are getting in there and having real-time conversations with candidates, understanding what's important to them when they're looking for a new role, what's going to make them want to change, and actually having conversations. And I think that's the art of recruitment still. You can automate so much, but you've still got to have real world meaningful conversations, and it's those people that are getting on and talking to those candidates quickly that are getting there much quicker. So those are a few things that is happening in the ATS world. We've also got, I'm just going to switch that for a second. We're also, as I said to you earlier, we're going to have a guest coming on in the next week or the week after, and we're going to be talking about sleep. Unfortunately, Ravinda, I'm not going to have Paul McKenna, but maybe I'll message him, because we are in central London, and you never know, I might be able to convince him to come on and have a chat. But we want to talk about sleep and how people can better do that. Okay, so those are some of the subjects. I just want to remind you, if you're joining me now, we're live on LinkedIn. It's good fun to have a chance to talk to people on LinkedIn and see what's going on. Last week, we covered a lot of different topics, which was around about getting your CV up to scratch, how to network, We talked a lot on IR35 and those impacts. And if anyone's got any questions, or any comments, you can just write it straight in the comments section here on LinkedIn Live. Let me know what you think. What's the things that are causing you pain at the moment? What are the things that you're enjoying? What are you seeing in the marketplace at the moment? What is the market telling you when you're applying for jobs, or just general what you see as the industry market at the moment? I think with, obviously, in the UK, obviously with Brexit going on and now some clarity on the direction of travel, I think organizations are investing in projects that they've put off for a long time. They need to invest. They need to remain competitive. They need to sell more products or services, and they need to upgrade their systems. So we're going to see a lot more projects, I believe. But equally, with the issues around IR35, you've got organizations that are continuing to look to cost cut and outsource some of their work. But I think if I've spoken to a lot of people in the past, whether it's permanent hires or contractors, the old adage always stays, where it's all about the quality and the delivery of that work. And you can outsource so much, and obviously that's great, and you can get a good result with that. But it's equally important to have good people who really are close to the business, understand the business, and really can drive forward those new initiatives, those change that comes within it. So I'd love to see what's going to happen over the next few months. I think it's going to be a very interesting time in the market. Love to talk more about what people are seeing when they're following up their CV. So I think I'm seeing at the moment, again, a lot of people are applying to jobs, but they're not following up. And I think it's a real tip for any candidates out there that perhaps have put their CV into companies, or perhaps they're going up with agencies. And I think the ones that really stand out is the ones that make the effort to put that call in and follow up on their CV, and really talk about why they are suitable for that role based on their skills and experience in the past, or perhaps there's something that they've got that's of value to that organization that they believe will be right. And I think the follow-up is really simple. I think it gets too difficult now, where I'm seeing a lot of people are just following up with a message on LinkedIn. Now that might work for some, and maybe you've got to do that as well. But I think it's difficult where you're living in multiple devices with multiple contacts. So if you're following that up into the end client company, you might know someone in the company. So that might make it easy. If you're following up with that agency, you might already be connected with them on LinkedIn. But try dropping them a call. If they don't pick up and it goes to voicemail, you could drop them a text if you have their contact details. You could message them. But I'd always say just make that a follow-up call, and you can get a couple of minutes for them as well. So those are some of the things that you can do. So it's a quick roundup today on LinkedIn. I've got 5 or 6 subjects that I'm going to be bringing up over the next couple of weeks, and find out what the burning topics are for people in the marketplace. And look, if you've got any questions or want to join me here on LinkedIn Live, I will be able to bring you as a guest. So you'll be able to come in live as a guest. We'll be talking about stuff. I'm particularly interested in those people who perhaps have been out of work for a while. It's obviously easier for people if they can come on live where they're not in a job at the moment. So that would be good. I'd love to talk through to someone who's been out of work and is trying to look for a role. I'll just bring that up, Paul. Paul, lovely to hear from you, by the way. I haven't spoken to you for a while, so I'm glad you are well. When following up, it was near impossible to get hold of the relevant recruiter. Calls and emails would go answered. Unfortunately, was more common or not. Yeah, I mean, Paul, that's really bad. And it goes back to the test of time. I think, I've been in this game a long time, so have you. There's some fantastic people in this industry that have been here for a long time. And those people that have been consistent in the industry are generally the ones that do return the call, that make the effort to do that. And I agree with you. It's bad manners, really, bad process and bad manners. But Paul, don't get too despondent, because that's exactly what we're doing out in the marketplace. Hiring managers, talent acquisition managers, whichever side of the fence that is, are incredibly busy people with their own challenges, with their own problems, and their own job to be doing. And trying to fit everything else in a day is very difficult. So we have to be empathetic to those people, but we also, recruiters are also incredibly busy as well. And I think I agree with you. It can always be better. We'll always have this problem. But equally, that the good ones will return the call, and you just got to be consistent, or call them at different times of the day, or try and catch them at a different time of the day. So don't call them at lunchtime. They might be in the gym or for those other people, they might be in the pub, but you might want to catch them in the day, catch them in the morning, and get them at 8:30 in the morning or 8 o'clock, depending what time they start, and just give them 5 minutes or drop them a message on LinkedIn and tell them that you're going to be calling them at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's another good way to do it. But again, Paul, if they want to get back to you, if they really value your application, they value your time, and they want to treat you as a professional, they will pick up the phone. So thanks for that, Paul. Great to hear from you, as always. Faisal, I'm not sure how to answer this question. Is ATS the best way to hire? Well, I don't know what you mean by that. I'm guessing that you mean, having some kind of system. And of course, if you're on the client side, having some kind of system is great, because you need to track applications. There's some GDPR compliance that you need to follow. So people need to ensure that they've got a system in place. And if you're hiring for permanent, I absolutely think that having a good, solid application tracking system in place is paramount, because you want to track conversations, you want to track those intimate conversations that you can't get from an application. So any kind of comments that you've had, the interview progress, the reasons why the hiring manager has rejected that candidate or whatever, maybe a time that you need to follow that up in the future. Particularly works well for permanent. If you're an end client, an end customer that's hiring people. So yeah, I mean, ATS, an application tracking system for that is really fundamental. However, we've got antiquated systems where, people haven't got the time, they haven't got the resource in organizations to manage that. Of course, email is still, used widely. There's ways outside of the ATS that might be being used to circumvent that process. That might be done by the hiring manager to save time as well. And it may be that no one owns that process. All those processes have been put in place, and then over time, those processes have diminished. They haven't worked very well. No one again in the organization has owned it to keep control of it and keep it moving forward. And equally, the hiring manager may have become frustrated with that slow process and back to the old ways, because the old ways worked. So this is a great subject, actually, Faisal. So thanks for bringing it up. There's no easy answer to that one. And I'd love to have other people's views on this. And maybe there's a talent acquisition manager watching this who'd love to come on and talk to me about it. In fact, I know a few that I think would be quite fun to have on as a guest if they're feeling brave. And we might just talk about that further next week. So I will listen back to that. And I'd love to talk more about that subject as well. So thanks, Faisal. Thanks for bringing that up. So it's coming up to 5:25 in London. I've got a few clocks behind me. And it's good to remember the different time zones around the world, so I can have a quick glance up to make sure I'm calling people at the right time. I'm here sitting in London. I'm optimistic for the new year for everyone. I wish everyone success in making things happen. We've all got the ups and downs of life, but hopefully if you're looking for a job right now and you're finding it difficult, just remain positive. And particularly if you are finding it difficult and you feeling brave and you want to come on and talk about what you've been doing, what you've been finding, we'll talk through about how we can help you secure that next role, whether it's contract or permanent, whether it's in the UK, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in the US. Feel free to message me, just david@vineresources.com, or as you're connected with me or should be connected with me, or if you're not connected with me, send me a connection request on LinkedIn and I will bring you in for a call. I'll explain how that works. We'll have a chat live on LinkedIn and we can talk through your challenge, and we'll have a community of hundreds of thousands of people who might just see it and be able to reach out to you. So yeah, I hope you have a good start to the week, and take care. See you soon.